37 years in the entertainment industry, and in that time I've collected quite a few passes. I've also collected quite a few stories, and I'd like to share those with you, from run-ins with the mafia to meeting Nelson Mandela to and many more stories in between. Some behind the scenes, some adventures, some of the travelling that we did, some of the amazing places that we went to. This is Mortlake to Mandela. We're on tour with Chris Norman, who was ex-Smokey, Needles and Pins, various other songs that I can't remember at the moment. Living Next Door to Alice was his famous one, which in actual fact got wrecked by Chubby Brown, who did that Who the Fuck is Alice version. And every time we went out on the road and we did that song, Living Next Door to Alice, as Chris's big encore. And every time he sung this song, the audience would start chanting, Alice, Alice, who the fuck is Alice? And the drummer would try and cover this up. And yeah, funny to the rest of the world, but not funny to the person who wrote the original song. And obviously all his fans are singing it. And it got so bad that he actually had to take it out the set. So Living Next Door to Alice turned into be an absolute hell song for him, which is a bit of a shame. I'm sure he makes plenty of royalties on it. But it's turned into an absolute nightmare with his fans now shouting who the fuck is Alice all the time. Anyway, so me, Steve and Bruce were on said tour, and we were travelling from Dresden to Berlin overnight. And we were in an LT35, which is a Volkswagen old van. At the day, felt like you were driving a 2CV, you know, just held together with like elastic bands and things like that. Anyway, we pulled into a service station. I was driving. We pulled into a service station, get some coffee, and Steve was known for his speed rolling of joints at the time, I seem to remember. And so we got back in the van and we egged him on. We said, go on, Steve, you know, see how fast you can roll one. And so anyway, I think it took him about 20 seconds, which was pretty good. And we said, well, we got to try it now. Obviously, we've got to see what's going on. So anyway, the time it took us to kind of drive down this road and smoke this joint, kind of just at the end, when just as Steve had finished smoking, this noise, we must have hit this bump in the road, and this noise came on, this beeping sound came on in the van, constant like tone, is coming on, and this light came on the dashboard, just showing the battery. And it was all, you know, in the middle of the German Autobahn, there's no lights, everything's really dark. And so I pull over to the side of the road and switch the engine off. And Bruce says to me, he says, oh, Dan, don't switch the engine off. He said, you might never get it started again. Oh, well, I was young, you know, and I didn't know much about cars or vans or anything. And I'm like, look, if it's beeping at me like this, I'm thinking it doesn't want to be driven, right? So anyway, we're in East Germany. It's back in 1993, so mid-90s, and there's not a lot of English communication going on, and we don't speak a lot of German. I mean, when you travel to many different places in the world, picking up on any one language, especially at that age, it takes some doing and some time. So you kind of get by with just a few basics, you know, a bit like my grandfather did. Apparently my grandfather learnt how to say thingamy in every language, my mum used to say. And so he'd walk into a shop and he would just say, point and say thingamy, I'd like some thingamy, you know. And so the story goes, you know, it's a wonderful story, but I'll let you know if that one works out to be true or not. Anyway, so we've pulled over, and we're now we've pulled over. There is about half of the Autobahn hard shoulder is piled with snow, and as I said, the German the German version of the hard shoulder is only as wide as a cycle lane anyway, so you can barely get your car in it in the first place. And there are only 2 lanes to their motorway, effectively, their Autobahn. and certainly were back then. They've kind of improved things a little bit since those days. And so, well, we're like, okay, well, we'll have to go and we need to go and find Breakdown. So the service station was only just down the road, you know, because we only took the time it took us to smoke a cigarette. We're here, you know, so it can only be down the road. Anyway, as we're speaking and wondering what to do, this police car pulls up in front of us. And to start with, we're thinking, oh, brilliant, we're saved, but we just need to tell him that the van's kaput. It's kind of about the only German we knew back then. So, the van's kaput, you know, is what we were rehearsing to say. And as he's walked up and he's shining his torch around the van, he shines it down just in front of the van. And just in front of the van is this large pool of dried blood. And we look at it horrified because it's literally right by the front of the van. And we went, no, nine, no. And he starts laughing at us, right? And says, no, it's okay, look, you know, it's fine. It must have just been a dead animal that had been hit by something. And it just so happened we pulled up next to it. So, and the fear of not speaking it. And obviously, you know, the wall's only just come down, hasn't it? So it's got a bit of a reputation for being quite a harsh country back then. So you're a little bit scared, a little bit concerned. Anyway, so we tell him that the van is kaput and ask him for a lift to the service station. You know, can we get a lift to the service station? And he looks at us and just blatantly just says no. And we're like, oh, he doesn't speak English, so he says no. And he points down the road to the direction that we've just come from. And he says something. I haven't a clue what the man said, but he pointed down the road, and our first thought was service station. It's got to be the nearest one because they're so spread out, and it was only just back there. So, well, let's walk to it. Bruce looks at us and he says, "You're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. There is no fucking way I'm walking in the snow and ice back to that service station. So you guys carry on. I'm going to go to sleep in the van. One of us needs to be awake when we have to drive all the way to Berlin." Okay, Bruce, no problem. So with that, he cracks open a bottle of vodka, starts swigging it, and falls asleep. He then disconnects, and we've got the hazard lights on. But with the hazard lights also comes this beep, beep, beep noise, because obviously it's running the battery and the battery's running low. So Bruce gets under the dash, rips the dash off, and disconnects the beep. So that it's just, he's got the headlights, so he can just hear, that's him, he's going to sleep. And me and Stevie start walking. And it's pitch black. We've got our mag lights with us because obviously we don't want to be hit by a truck as we're going down the motorway. And you can see way, way, way in the distance this pair of headlights appearing. And it kind of lights up the fact that you're in forest land, you know, woodland. And it's just, as far as the eye can see, just this kind of silhouette of trees. And it takes the lorry a good 3-4 minutes to get to you. So you can imagine how long this is that you're looking. But to us, you see a corner. Well, it's just round that corner. You know, if it's taking him 3 or 4 minutes to get to us, then that's how long it took us to do this journey. You know, I mean, Steve rolled it in 10 seconds, for God's sake, you know. So it didn't take that long for us to travel. So we're walking. And every time these trucks get closer, we start waving our mag lights and we ask them to move over. And these trucks aren't moving over and they're staying in their lane. And they're getting so close to us that you can feel the wind rushing past and you've got no hard shoulder to stand on because it's piled up with snow. And we carry on walking. And we walk and we think, well, look, there's no point us trying to hitch on the other side of the road. There's nothing on the road. I mean, it's you know, you're talking a good half an hour between vehicles actually appearing. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, there's nothing going on. But even if we'd have tried to hitch on the other side of the road, who the hell's going to see us? You know, and we thought it better to be facing the traffic as opposed to not. So we carry on walking and we're walking and we look and we see it's got to be round that corner. When it's too far to go back now. This is after 2 hours of walking. So it can't be that far now. I mean, this is, you know, we've been walking for 2 hours along the side of this autobahn. We have to be there in a minute. You know, this is crazy times. Anyway, I think it gets to about 7:30 in the morning. So we've been walking since 3. So 4.5 hours. And the sun starts to rise. Obviously, this is the winter, you know, and it just starts to get to that dusky stage where, you know, that morning stage where it just start to picture out things. And we thought this is a good opportunity for us now to get on the other side. We're whacked by this stage. We've looked up. I've seen the signs that went from Dresden to Dortmund, and it gave you the mileage, and it turned out that we'd hit a point where we'd walked 32 kilometres. 32 kilometres back to this point, and still no service station. You know, so we crossed the road at a clear point, obviously, and we think we'll try this hitching. What can possibly go wrong? I've had it by this stage. You know what I mean? I don't care anymore. So we hitch out, and sure enough, this little Fiesta, just pulls up. Little grunged out. I mean, you know, 90s. What wasn't? But grunged out, had a few like death metal stickers all over it, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And he pulls over the side of the road, and this big burly German biker dude gets out, rocker dude gets out, you know, in his big jacket, and kind of grunts and says, "Oh," you know, and we try and explain in our best pidgin English. Van broken down road. You give lift to us, maybe there? And he just said yes, you know, and okay, brilliant. So in we get to the back. He lets the seat back, and we pile into this little like Fiesta like this, and there are 15-inch speakers on his back shelf, and they're kind of like purring away with this death metal, kicking off, you know, and you're thinking, and we're looking at each other, and it's silence, and you've got these two big guys in the front, and you've got us crammed in the back, and me and Steve, we look at each other, and we look at our mag lights in our hand, which are about so big, so long, and we just changed the grip, shall we say, a little bit, and just went, I don't feel right. Something feels wrong here, you know. Anyway, we start to travel down the road, and not far, to be honest. I mean, obviously in a car, you know, a mile's only a minute. So we travel, and all of a sudden, he puts his indicator on, and he starts to take the turning off the motorway. And I get so scared. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is it. You know, we've had it. Oh, you know, and I start to panic, and I went, 999, service station is, and he starts laughing, and he says, it's okay, boys, it's okay. He pulls over to the side of the road, and he says, 1 kilometre over there. He says, I leave motorway. 1 kilometre this way. So thank you so much. So we walk the last kilometre, which again just never came. You know, that sign that was 1 kilometre just never got any closer. And we pulled up into this service station and walked straight up to the counter and said, is there anyone that can help with a breakdown? And they said, yes, breakdown service, call the number. Here, I said, I don't speak German. And she says, oh, no, it's fine. Pick phone up. Okay. So I picked the phone up, and I say to them, yeah, breakdown. No, where are you? I said, I'm at the service station, so-and-so. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, fine. So we sit down, we get a cup of coffee, and they've got these little wind-up Travances, little matchbox wind-up Travances for sale. And we picked a couple of those up, and we were so delirious, we just started wheeling them backwards and forwards, winding them up to each other, as we waited for this guy to turn up to take us back to our van that was 32 kilometres, 33 kilometres now, back in the other direction. So eventually he gets there. Oh, hello boys, yes, how's it going? I said, great to see you, you know. He says, right, okay, we have first problem. And I said, okay, what's the problem? He says, the first problem is I can only get one person in my van. So I'm like, well, look, okay, that's cool, right? So Steve, you stay here and have a cup of coffee, okay? Me and this bloke will go 32 kilometres and go pick Bruce up, fix the van. We'll turn around, come back, pick you up, and then we'll all go off to Berlin. It's the only choice we've got. We can't do anything. Have a coffee, chill out. I may be some time. Right? So I get in the van and we start driving. Where are you going? I said, it's this way. And he says, how far this way are we going? And I said, I think it's about 32 kilometres. And he looks at me again and he went, oh, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. And I said, what? And he said, my route, it ends at 30. He said, it's out of my area. He says, I'm so sorry. There is nothing I can do to help you. And my face drops in this van. And I looked at him and I said, really? And he said, no, I'm only joking. He said, let's go. And I was just like, oh, here we go. So he said, oh, you English with your dark sense of humour. I said, me? It's not me. So anyway, up we go. We travelled our 32 kilometres. And as we pull up, there's already a service van there who's pulled over to the side of the road to see this van in distress. And him and Bruce are out there and they've kind of solved the problem. But however, the guys take me, it was the bushes had come loose. They, you know, it basically charges the battery. But we'd been driving across cobbled streets. So you'd be driving along an autobahn, and all of a sudden you'd come into this little town, and it would be cobbles, and the van would be hitting these cobbles at 50 mile an hour and going, and it just didn't feel like it was ever going to stop. You know, you'd put your foot on the brake and it would just be bouncing on down the road. And I think that might have caused a few problems and worked a few things loose. Anyway, we get back in the van and it's right. He said, well, where's Steve? And I said, well, he's actually 32 kilometres back that way. And he said to me, 32 kilometres, Dan. And I said, yeah, 32 kilometres this way. And the guy in the van, he said to me, he said, what are you, please tell me. He said, you walked 32 kilometres to the service station to find me. He said, why didn't you pick the phone up at the side of the road? And I said to him, well, but I don't speak German. And he said, and I don't speak English. And also, if you pick the phone up, at least we know where you are. And you don't have to walk 32 kilometres. And he said, you'd have to speak English when you get down to the service station. And I'm thinking, this is a big life lesson, to be honest. I mean, the man's really putting me straight here. But yeah, what it turns out was that the policeman was pointing to the phone. Like, I'm not going to give you a lift anywhere. Pick the phone up and everything's going to be all right. Which was interpreted of there's a service station just around the corner. It just so happened that the corner was 32 bloody kilometres long. Anyway, get back in the van and it's now we've got to go back 32 kilometres to pick Steve up. This is adding an extra hour onto our already late day. It's now 8:30 in the morning. And we've got a gig to do this day, and we've still got another 4 hours before we're going to get to Berlin. So we're in for a 5-hour journey here anyway. So we get in the van and there's a corner, and we'll come off the next slip road, and we'll drive back down the motorway, and off we go. So we come off at the next slip road, and as we pull off at the next slip road, there is a service station, and there is a hotel, and there is a restaurant right there. This was not even 500 metres from us. That would have saved us a hell of a lot of time, wouldn't it? So we went back, we picked Steve up and carried on our journey. Now, the other part to this story was that about a couple of weeks before I went on this tour, I was asked by a friend of mine who was doing some courier work on a motorbike, and he had to drop a package off on the Isle of Wight, and he said, do you fancy coming for a spin? I've got to go. And so I said, oh yeah, cool, let's do it. So I hop on the back of his 125, I think it was, it had one of the rubber mounts on the foot pegs missing on the exhaust pipe side for the passenger. So kind of wary of this, I put my feet on the on the foot pegs, and we're travelling, and it's quite a long way from London to the ferry on the back of a motorbike when you're not really dressed for the occasion as well. Anyway, my foot feels like it's getting a little bit hot. But I'm thinking, it's pins and needles. I've been in this position for quite a long time and, it's not a problem. Anyway, we get to the ferry, and as we get off the bike on the ferry, I get off and my foot goes squelch on the ground. And I'd been resting my sole of my DMs on the exhaust pipe, and it melted one corner down. So this is why it felt like it was getting hot. So I had this kind of like worn out part of my DM. Well, back in those days we didn't have any money, so you just got, like I could still, as long as they didn't lean over that side, I could get about another 6 months out of them, I reckon. And anyway, so I was wearing these very boots when I came back and did the walk. So when we're telling the story to Chris about how we spent all night trying to get to his gig and how we'd broken down and walked this distance, and how he's thanking us for getting to the gig on time and devoting our time to our man, and he and I said to him, I know, Chris, I said, look, I said, I worn out a pair of shoes because of you. I said, I walked all the way back to that service station and look what's happened to my boot, as a joke, and didn't think much of it and walked off and all having a bit of a laugh. 2 days later, Mr. Norman comes up to me with a package, and it's a pair of size 10 DMs, brand new DMs, and he's like, thank you so much, Dan, for everything you did to get me through that gig. I did not have the heart to tell him that I didn't actually wear my soul out on there.